share my screen. All right, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for All Pennsylvania Students, sponsored by the Pennsylvania Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. PACAC is a nonprofit association comprised of more than 1,200 school counselors, college admission counselors, independent educational consultants, and other professionals responsible for guiding students through the important transition from high school to post-secondary options. We thank you for joining us today. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions for our presenter at any time. Your camera and your microphone are off, so the panelists cannot hear or see you. This is just one of many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at pacac.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within a week at that same website, pacac.org. And now I would like to turn it over to our presenters. You are here to learn about the University of Colorado at Boulder. Take it away.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining today. I am going to go ahead and share my screen real quick. So I'm going to work on getting that up. In the meantime, just want to introduce myself. My name is Rebecca. I am one of the admission counselors here at CU Boulder. So, and I actually work with all of our students from Pennsylvania. So as you're navigating the college search process with CU Boulder, just know that I'm a great resource for you throughout the entire process. So feel free to take down my contact information. You'll see that on the screen there. And just as a reminder, I am here to answer any questions that you have. So my goal today is to spend some time sharing some information about CU Boulder and then wrap up with any questions that you all have. So as you have questions, please feel free to use that chat feature. I'll be able to get to that at the end and we will go ahead and jump right in. So to kick it off, I want to share some big picture information about us. I'm sure you figured out by now, we are located in Boulder, Colorado. We are more of a college town right at the base of the Rocky Mountains, so not a bad location for your 4 years of college. We are really about as far west as you can get before you're actually in the Rocky Mountains. We have been named #1 college town in America, and actually within the last few days, I think US News and whatever report, whoever that is, named us the best city in the US to live in. So super cool. It's a really thriving and vibrant community that our students join, not just the campus experience. So campus is really at the center of our community here in Boulder, but our students are joining not just this campus community, but also the greater community of Boulder. We'll talk a little bit more today about your academic experience and what that looks like here at CU. You know, the 18:1 student to faculty ratio, what that classroom feels like on campus. We'll also talk about all of the academic experiences that you have access to in addition to your extracurricular experience as well. Just a couple other things I want to share about Boulder. We're about 30 minutes northwest of Denver. So if you've ever been to Colorado, you've probably flown into the Denver airport. We're about 45 minutes from that. So we are just right outside of the Denver metropolitan area. So not only do our students have access to campus in the greater Boulder area, we're also pretty close to Denver as well. As far as where we fit into the landscape of colleges that you may be looking at, CU Boulder is a large public Tier 1 research institution. So we are that flagship institution here in Colorado. So probably like your Penn State essentially in Colorado. So definitely a larger school experience. So we'll talk a little bit more about today and all of those resources that you have access to at an institution like CU Boulder. Now, where I want to dive in first is more on the academic experience. What I love about our academic experience at CU Boulder is that it truly is customizable and you have the opportunity to drive that experience based on where your interests lie. I know many of you maybe have a major in mind already, but I challenge you today to think of ways that you can really add things to that major that you may already be considering. Know that you're not just limited to one major on campus. You can do research in interdisciplinary areas. You can add on majors, minors, certificates, and really create this experience that is your own. Now, what I love is that at CU Boulder, learning often goes well beyond the classroom. So students have the opportunity to participate in experiential learning, cross-disciplinary study, and enrichment opportunities beyond just that traditional spending a few hours in the class every day. Within that classroom experience, like I mentioned earlier, we do have an 18:1 student to faculty ratio. What I think most people don't expect to hear is that 85% of our classes are taught with less than 50 students. So quite a bit smaller than most would anticipate, being that we're a larger institution. Certainly the other 15% of those courses may be a little bit larger. So you may be looking at a lecture hall from time to time of maybe up to 200 students. But what I like about that is you really get a full college experience. You get some of that lecture hall, but it's not your everyday experience. Beyond that though, hands-on research is another really big part of our campus culture. Research on campus at CU is going to extend across all disciplines. It's not all just test tubes and lab coats. We're doing research in our psychology program. We're doing research in business and English. So regardless of your background or your interests, there's likely an opportunity for you to do research on campus here at CU Boulder. And in addition to that, our students have access to a variety of different global experiences, and that looks a little bit different for each student in each program. One program in particular that I think is really cool is our global experience that our lead School of Business students have access to as a business student. They actually have the opportunity to go abroad for a week at the end of the semester. There's some other programs that offer structures like that as well, but it allows you to get a little taste of another culture and do that in a little bit shorter span. So a really cool way for you to see that global experience or kind of experience that study abroad program in a little bit smaller commitment. But beyond that, we're also bringing global experiences to campus as well. We know that's a really important part of a college experience. One example is our Conference on World Affairs that we have on campus every year, where we're bringing thought leaders from all across the globe to campus to share their views and educate our community here. So like I mentioned earlier, many of you probably have a major in mind already, and if you don't, that's okay too. Being at CU Boulder, you have access to a lot of different academic opportunities. First being over 100 different majors for our students to choose from. So that's probably one of those million-dollar questions your senior year. Where are you going to college and what are you going to major in? First of all, it's okay if you don't have that answer, but if you do, you can certainly take a look at all of our offerings. We have quite a bit to choose from for a major, but beyond that, you can also add things onto that major that you may be interested in. Our students have access to over 50 different minors, allowing you to add on like a smaller sampling of courses that may be another area of interest, but maybe you don't want to fully commit to a major. Definitely a way for you to take smaller sampling of courses and just kind of add another layer of expertise to that field of study. We also have over 40 different concurrent enrollment options. So this will allow you to graduate with both your bachelor's degree and your master's degree from CU Boulder. What's nice about these is it condenses that process. So most students will go on and get their master's degree after they graduate from their bachelor's degree. So that's maybe looking at a total of 6 or 7 years of school. That allows you to actually condense that into 5 years here if you're part of one of those concurrent enrollment programs. And we also have over 100 different certificates for our students to choose from. A certificate is going to be a really similar concept to a minor. So again, a smaller sampling of courses that you can add on to your degree. Oftentimes it does relate back to your major. But between all of these options, I'm sure you can imagine there are endless combinations of pathways for you to explore here at CU Boulder. So you do really have the opportunity to customize your experience based on where your interests are. Now, all of our majors on campus will fall into one of 7 or 8 different college schools and programs on campus. So you'll see all of those listed here, except for one. I'll get to that 8th in just a moment here. But I want to give you an idea of what that academic experience could look like in each of these colleges. So I just want to briefly touch on all of these. First being the College of Arts and Sciences. This is our largest program on campus, and it's home to a variety of different majors, including the natural sciences, so things like biology and chemistry, also home to our social sciences, so programs like economics or political science, and then also the arts and humanities. So that would cover programs like dance, theater, maybe languages, stuff like that. So much more of a liberal arts exposure to your education in this program. College of Engineering and Applied Science, this would be home to all of our engineering majors. This is a really popular program for us. In particular, aerospace engineering is really big. But beyond that, this program also will include computer science, applied mathematics, technology, arts, and media, definitely more of a STEM focus in this program. Leeds School of Business is home to all of our business majors, so programs like marketing, finance, accounting, management, real estate, but Leeds is one of our more customizable degrees on campus, so they actually offer a lot of those certificates that I mentioned. So you could be a marketing major, but also get a certificate in global business or sports management to just add these other business layers to your degree. School of Education, home to anyone hoping to be a future teacher. So anyone, grades K through 8, we have both elementary and secondary ed pathways for our students at CU Boulder. This program also has a leadership major, so very applicable for the students in the education program, but also a really great interdisciplinary program to add on to really any other major on campus. Let's be honest, we can all benefit from studying leadership to some extent. So it's a really cool major that program also offers. College of Media, Communication, and Information. This would be home to our majors like advertising, public relations, media studies, information science. I'm a really big fan of this program. One thing that I think is really cool is that this field changes so drastically. I mean, if you all think about the media landscape that we're exposed to right now compared to 2 to 3 years ago, let alone 5, 10, 15 years ago, that's drastically changed. So this field also is drastically changing as well. So our students are taught to be kind of on the forefront of that change, to be thinking more strategically in the field and really kind of impact the pathway that the field is going. So definitely a really cool thing to think about there. College of Music, this is home to any of our music majors. So this could be music education, also music performance, so vocal or an instrument, more of a conservatory style education in this program. One thing that I think is really important to keep in mind is that even if you don't see yourself being a music major in college, you're certainly welcome and encouraged to participate in our music program in the ensemble. So if you're someone who's been involved in music throughout high school, maybe that is, band, choir, orchestra, things like that, you're certainly welcome and encouraged to continue that here at CU Boulder, even if you're not a music major. And last on the slide is our program in environmental design. This is a little bit more unique. You won't see things or won't see programs like this at most institutions. So this will capture majors like environmental design, but also urban planning, landscape design, architecture, more of a studio component in this program. So it's a really cool fit for someone that has more of an analytical brain, but also creative side as well. So very hands-on throughout the 4 years here. Now, the next program I want to talk about is a little bit different than the others that I just shared about. Reason being is that none of our students will actually graduate from this program with the major in exploratory studies. It's really designed as a first-year advising program, and it's kind of a jumping point to the rest of the entire institution, or a launching point to another major, essentially. So if you're someone that heard me rattle off all of those other programs and are maybe a little overwhelmed on where to start, my recommendation is exploratory studies. This is a really great program for students that are a little undecided and need some coaching and more in-depth conversations on trying to find that right academic fit here at CU Boulder. It might also be that you're having more in-depth conversations about career pathways that might be a good fit, or skills that you have that could apply to a career down the road. So definitely a lot more intentional conversations about career growth and where you see yourself going when you graduate. Now, another student that may be a good fit for this program is someone that is not directly admitted to their first choice program. So when our students apply to CU Boulder, they will pick the major that they're most interested in, and we will review them for that program specifically. One example would be our College of Engineering. Super popular program for us. It also tends to be more competitive as a result of that. So our students, if that aren't directly admitted to engineering, will be secondarily reviewed for this program. And what we do then is students admitted to this program are going to get on campus their first year, take some classes so that they can then transfer into engineering their second year. So that's just one example, but know that our students can utilize this program in a variety of different ways. It really is a jumping point to explore multiple different interests across campus. Now, we know that your college experience is going to span well beyond the classroom here at CU Boulder, and half the fun of college is creating that healthy work-life balance. Academics is very important, but so is that balance in that life outside of the classroom. So our students are really encouraged to take advantage of the community that they are a part of here at CU. And where that community typically starts is in the residence halls. Our first year students are typically all living in the residence halls, and that could be in our traditional housing, where you're just paired up with a random roommate. But we also have some programs where you can choose to live with students that have shared interests to some extent. One example of that would be our residential academic programs. These allow you to live with students that have similar academic interests. So one example of this would be our health sciences residential academic program, where you can live with other students also studying the health sciences. You can take classes with these students, and actually there's one class every semester in these programs that you take right in your residence hall. So there's this added bonus of being able to roll out of bed and be at class already, but you do have built-in study buddies and folks that are studying similar things that you're also living with. So kind of bridges that gap between your academic and your residence hall experience. Living learning communities are going to be very similar. They're going to be more special interest focused. So maybe it's social justice living learning community, or one of my favorites are active living and learning communities. So those of you that want to stay active in college, maybe you want to live with others that want to do intramurals on campus, or maybe go for a hike after class, that enjoy climbing or skiing, you name it. It allows you to build friendships and communities around these shared interests. Now, beyond that, there's certainly a lot going on and a lot of other ways that our students are going to build communities on campus beyond just that residence hall experience. You'll see kind of a variety of examples here, but I think it's important to come back to CU Boulder is a large institution. We serve, around 33,000 total students here on campus, and that's really a benefit to you as a student. Not only are we going to have the things that you're really excited about, but it might mean that you have an opportunity to try something new, meet friends that are involved in different things. And I think that's a really cool part of your college experiences. You'll have access to the things that you're excited about, but also some new things as well. Maybe you're someone who's excited about that travel piece. Maybe you're excited about learning from different people from all over the world. We talked about that study abroad component. We have programs in over 60 different countries, so there's quite a bit to choose from there. Maybe you're someone who likes to connect with the community that you're a part of. Maybe that's through service. Our Volunteer Resource Center is a great starting point for any of you that are looking to give back to our community with multiple different ways in which you can engage with the Boulder community. Maybe you're someone who likes to enjoy the outdoors and the natural environment. Certainly there are no shortage of opportunities there. Boulder has a pretty great backyard for our students to hang around in. So we have access to some of the best ski resorts in the country. We have hundreds of miles of hiking and biking trails right within the city of Boulder. One thing that I think is even just worth noting too, if that's not your deal, that's okay. We certainly have a pretty great backdrop for your 4 years of college, even if you're not an outdoors person yourself. And I think our weather is a great perk year round. I grew up in the Midwest, so like y'all living on the East Coast, I'm sure you know the drill of, winter and all of that fun stuff and the harsh seasons that you have. They're not going to be quite as harsh here in Colorado. We have snow, throughout the winter, but it's not nearly as cold throughout the winter. So definitely some nice perks to the weather as well. Maybe you are someone who's always coming up with new product ideas. Maybe you have that next great idea. Entrepreneurship is definitely a big component of our community here in Boulder, not just on campus, but also within the city of Boulder. Boulder is home to a really large entrepreneurship community and a big startup community. So a lot of startup companies are located in Boulder, among many other large corporations as well. You may be someone who likes to ask hard questions. Maybe you're a problem solver. You love finding answers to things. Research might be something that you want to consider. And we talked earlier, research is happening really across all disciplines on campus. But what I think is really cool is at a tier 1 research institution, we have access to some really high quality research that's being done on campus. And as a flagship institution, we see our role in research is to give back to the community. So definitely a really cool thing to have access to on campus here. Or maybe you're someone who's driven by creativity. Maybe you see yourself getting involved in the arts in college. We've talked about a couple ways in particular that you can do that through some of the majors on campus, but Beyond that, we have some a really cool art scene in the city of Boulder, but also on campus. Maybe it's, taking advantage of art that's down on Pearl Street, or going to the poetry slam on Wednesday night at the coffee shop down the road. We have a variety of different venues in town here where we have different concerts coming through, different comedians, you name it. So definitely a fun art scene as well. And honestly, as cheesy as it sounds, I do think there's something for everyone in Boulder. Anything from that outdoors experience to our art scene to, taking advantage of the 500 plus clubs and organizations on campus. You really have a lot at your fingertips. Obviously some of the things on the slide here, these are going to contribute to taking advantage of the outdoors and being outside. Again, that's not for everyone, but know that that can be a really cool part of your experience. You're not just going to access all of these things happening on campus, but you have all of these other things at your fingertips right within our community as well. Now, ultimately, really the goal of going to college, I'm sure for most of you, is getting a job when you graduate or setting you up for something when you're done 4 years from now. I think it's hard to kind of frame the college search in this light. I challenge you to think of, is this institution going to set me up to do what I want to do when I'm graduating from college? And again, I know that's a ways out from now, but I challenge you to think of that, or ask yourself that question: is CU Boulder or is this other institution going to set me up for success when I'm done? Now, a couple ways that we're going to measure success from a metric standpoint are students getting jobs when they graduate. So within 6 months of graduation, 92% of our students are essentially doing something that they want to be doing within 6 months of graduation. So many of those students are employed. One thing that I think is really cool, 74% of our graduates are admitted to their first choice graduate program. So not just admitted to grad school, but admitted to their first choice program. If you hear from students that are applying to graduate programs, oftentimes they're applying to a ton just hoping to get into one. I think, seeing that number there speaks volumes of how prepared our students are to navigate that graduate school process as well. Now, as you're talking about salary and that return on investment conversation, I do think salary can be an important part of that. Your college experience is certainly an investment. So, that outcome is a big part of what that could look like. So the two numbers you see on the slide here, first is a median starting salary for our CU graduates. So as students are graduating and entering the workforce. The next number is their median career salary. So your salary a little bit farther into your career after graduating. So you'll see a number of businesses here. These are currently some of our top employers where our alumni are headed. Really a lot of cool companies there. What I love about this list is, one, a lot of them are really familiar. So I think there's some excitement knowing that you have access to some really cool opportunities when you're graduating. But I also like that they're really going to span across a lot of different disciplines. It's not just business students that are getting jobs at these places. It's not just engineering students getting jobs at these places. It's really going to cover a wide variety of disciplines here. Now, another thing that I really find a lot of comfort in as I'm looking at this list is that a lot of these companies that you see listed here don't just have one single location. So I think that really is a great thing for our out-of-state students to be aware of. You may be looking at colleges, but not necessarily planning to settle down and live in Boulder forever, knowing that a lot of these companies have multiple locations across the US or even international locations, allows you to be more mobile as you're looking for jobs and graduating and utilizing our alumni connections. A great example of that is right here within Boulder. We have a Twitter location. We have multiple Google campuses in Boulder. We have IBM, Medtronic, all of these places, all of these companies that also have locations across the US. So that's certainly a perk for our students that are looking to be a little bit more mobile as they graduate. Now, ultimately, if you see yourself at CU Boulder, if you're excited about the possibility of being at CU, I want to make sure that you have the resources and the tools to navigate the application process. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time walking you through this. There is a lot of information here, so take notes, ask questions as you have them. And I recognize that we're all at a little bit different point in the college search process. Some of you may be seniors that are diving into the process already. Maybe you've submitted an application. Maybe you're a junior or younger who's just starting to explore. That's okay. This should be helpful regardless of where you're at. So first step in the process, fairly straightforward, but it's completing that application for admission. So our applicants at CU Boulder are going to apply through the common application. And this would be if you're applying to CU as a first-year applicant. We do also have pathways for students to apply to CU as a transfer student. So if you choose to go to another institution and then later decide you want to come to CU Boulder, our transfer students can also apply. They'll just apply through an application that we have on our website. But most of you, I'm guessing, are considering CU as a first-year student, so you'll apply through the Common App. The Common App, if that's new to anyone, that is essentially an application that can be sent to multiple different institutions. So what that means is you can add CU Boulder to your list, as well as a variety of other schools, and kind of streamline that process for you there. As far as what our typical student looks like, this is the middle 50% of our admitted first-year students for this current school year. So this is not a cutoff, this is not academic requirements, but if you were to line up our entire first-year class and take out that middle group of students, this is what their academic range would look like. So you'll see about a 3.5 to a 4.0 GPA, as well as their respective test scores. Now keep in mind, we'll get to this eventually, but we are test optional this year. So this is historically what our classes looked like. We don't anticipate, it will look quite like this, just knowing that not all of our students will be submitting scores going forward. So, but just to give you an idea, this is what our students have looked like academically in the past. So next step in the process is to submit all of these other pieces that go along with your application. I think this is often where students get tripped up or kind of miss some pieces. So I want to make sure to go through all of this here. We talked about the application already. We want to make sure you get your common application in. Now, in addition to that, or as a part of your common application, you will submit 2 short essays. That would be for our first-year applicants. That personal statement would be if you are applying as a transfer student. Now those essays you'll find within the common application. One of them is the general common application essay. That will be something that you'll do if you're using the Common App for any of your applications. You have to do that regardless. And then the second one is a specific essay that we will ask that's specific to CU Boulder. So when you add CU Boulder to your list of schools, we'll ask to see an essay for us specifically. We do have an application fee. You'll also find that within the common application. So within these first 3 pieces, all of this will kind of be sent in together through your common app. So just kind of make sure that you're completing all of those things as you're submitting your application. Now we're going to dive into some of the extra pieces. So this is where it might require an extra step to make sure additional materials get sent over to us. So first being your high school transcript. We, this year actually are accepting unofficial transcripts. We know that life is weird right now, so we want to help eliminate any barriers that may be present, with being virtual or hybrid to some extent. But we do need some version of your high school transcript. So official or unofficial is totally fine this year, as long as you have that sent in to some extent with your application. Same concept for college transcripts, especially if you're applying as a transfer student, we would need all of those. But even if you have taken any dual enrollment classes, if you've taken a class through your high school that will give you college credit, we won't require those during the admission process, but it does, if you choose to submit those, it does give us a little bit better insight into the kind of classes that you've taken. So I would consider submitting those, even if they're unofficial. It's just a nice way for us to look a little bit more in depth at what you've been taking. Next, test scores. So ACT or SAT, we don't have a preference. We do super score. So on the off chance that you have more than one exam to submit, just know that we're happy to take a look at all of those. Or if you don't have any to submit, that is okay too. Or if you choose not to submit, that's just fine. We are test optional for this current application cycle. So what that means is anyone who is graduating from high school in 2021 and plans to apply to CU Boulder for one of the 2021 academic terms. So that could be spring, summer, or fall start next year. Those students are able to apply test optional. I know that maybe some of you listening in are juniors or younger. I would just ask that you stay tuned on how this policy may change moving forward. This is more than you care to know, but typically the state of Colorado requires the public institutions to use test scores in their application review process. So we had to get the signature from the governor this year to allow us to be test optional. So it's kind of a temporary test optional policy just given the pandemic, but stay tuned. We're hopeful that we can implement this moving forward, but we'll need some additional approval for that. So stay tuned. Just another note on this, I know I'm getting a lot of questions about test optional. My advice is if you're not sure about submitting your test scores, skip them. Kind of a cheesy phrase, but when in doubt, submit without. I think you're in a good shape knowing that it's not going to negatively impact you if you don't have test scores to provide. We do require a letter of recommendation, and this should be someone that can provide more of some academic context for you, someone that can speak to your academic experience, so maybe a teacher or a counselor. We're happy to take more than one. We're also happy to take additional letters of recommendation that are not academic, so maybe from a boss or a coach or a band teacher. As long as at least one letter is an academic focus, then we're happy to take additional non-academic letters. And last piece here, we are also happy to take a look at a resume or an activities list if you have one. Certainly not a requirement, but I know that your life outside of the classroom often is very, you have a lot going on, and often it can be elaborated on a little bit more in depth through a resume or an activities list. So if you have that and want to provide more information there, please feel free to do so. We're happy to take a look at that. So there's really a lot that goes into an application. I'm sure you're looking at this checklist here, and you know, there's a lot that goes into it. But ultimately, all of those things do need to be submitted to us, and we need to have received them by one of these deadlines that you see. A couple deadlines here. I strongly recommend the earlier one. These are both options for students that are applying as a first-year applicant. You will see the difference between the two is that first one is an early action deadline, and the second is a regular decision deadline. Now, neither of these are binding. We don't offer early decision here at CU, but really that earlier option just allows you to get an admission decision from us earlier in the process. So our early action students will hear back in usually mid to late January. Our regular decision applicants will hear back from us around mid to late March. So with May 1st just being around the corner as that national decision date, obviously, the earlier you get your application in, the earlier you get a decision and just have a little bit more time to be making your final college decisions. So definitely recommend that early option. Now, there's a lot that goes into reviewing an application. We talked about that and kind of the checklist, but I like to share this because I think it can be overwhelming to picture the application process and not really knowing what colleges are actually going to look at. And maybe it's overwhelming to see all this, but I think it's really nice to see that we're looking at things much more in depth than simply just your GPA or simply just a test score that you provide to us. We're looking at your entire transcript. We're going to look at the types of classes that you're taking, the trend in your grades, GPA based on individual years, things like that. So it's far more in depth than I think most students realize, and just know we're going to look really thoroughly at all of the pieces of information that you choose to provide to us. And I think the reason that's so important to be aware of that is that there's, just know that we're looking really thoroughly, and I encourage you to be very thoughtful about all of those pieces that you're providing to us, because there's really a lot that goes into that review process. Now, what comes next in the process is often not as straightforward as it should be. So my advice is just make sure you're checking your email and opening the emails from all of the colleges that you apply to. I know you're probably getting a ton of college email spam, and I totally sympathize with that. But make sure at a minimum you're checking the emails from the colleges that you apply to. Reason being, we saw the whole list of what goes into the review process. We might follow up to say, hey, thanks for your application. We would love to see updated grades from senior year. Or, hey, it looks like you're still missing something. Those emails often get forgotten, and then we have an incomplete application sitting around, and I want to make sure to avoid that. So last but certainly not least is to make sure you're understanding cost and funding opportunities, not just at CU, but at all the institutions that you've applied to. Now to start, I just want to share overall costs. What you see here is our cost of attendance for your first year on campus as a non-resident student. So this will capture a variety of different things, but tuition being the cost of your classes. So that'd be for your first year on campus. The on-campus room and board, that will be the cost for your residence hall for the school year, as well as your meal plan for the school year. Books and supplies, that will it's more of a placeholder, but that will capture costs like textbooks, maybe notebooks, pens, pencils, whatever that might be for you. And just know that one thing that I think is really important to be aware of is you're looking at the tuition costs there. That is actually going to be set for the 4 years that you're at CU Boulder. So that doesn't sound like anything flashy up front, but many institutions actually increase tuition from year to year. So know that that won't be the case here at CU. So from a cost savings perspective, it's nice to know that your tuition won't go up every year. But what I think is also really helpful is it allows you to plan accordingly and have a really good idea of what your 4 years will actually cost to attend CU Boulder. That tuition will be a set rate once you're on campus here. Now, just a few other dates I want to highlight. I know this is a lot of information. I know the financial aid piece isn't necessarily the most riveting information in the world, but obviously financial fit is a really important part of the process. So a few dates to highlight from the financial aid perspective. 1 October 1st, that date is here already. This is when our seniors can start working on the FAFSA, or the free application for federal student aid. So this will allow you to apply for any need-based aid that you may qualify for. So things like grants, loans, work study, I strongly encourage that for all applicants. We recommend that that's submitted to us by mid-February. So want to make sure that that's done by that priority date of February 15th. November 1st is another important date for us. This is when our students can start applying for additional scholarship opportunities beyond the ones that you'll be automatically reviewed for during the admission process. So our students are able to apply for additional scholarship opportunities that could range anything from academic scholarships to scholarships based on extracurricular interests, you name it. But once you apply for admission, you'll then have access to the CU Boulder scholarship application. And we recommend that those are also submitted by mid-February. Some of those dates may be some of those deadlines may be as late as March 13th, as you see there, but some of those are a little bit earlier in February as well. So I usually just recommend that both your scholarship applications and your FAFSA are completed by mid-February. So like I said, I know that's a lot of information, and I want to give y'all some time to ask any questions that you have. So just as a reminder, feel free to use that question or that Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to send over questions to me directly. I'd be happy to answer those. But while we wait to see if we have any questions come in, one other thing that I just encourage you to do is follow us on social media. I know you probably have a ton of accounts that you're already following already, but one advice, or one that I actually really recommend, is our Instagram account. So if you follow us at Future Buffs, first of all, you see some awesome pictures of campus, but I think that there's a ton of content on there that students don't realize is there. We have anything from like admission counselor takeovers to student takeovers, where you're getting a little bit more inside information on what our students are up to on a day-to-day basis. And I think in a year where it's not quite as easy to get to college campuses, this is a really easy way to keep tabs on what's going on campus. Beyond that, another thing I encourage is to engage with us on our virtual visit page. Again, I know it's not the same as being in person, but actually this year I found that we have some really cool stuff available to students virtually that we wouldn't have normally offered in a typical year. So if you just go to colorado.edu/visit, you'll see all of those virtual opportunities there as well. So ways for you to actually hear from different programs that you might be interested in, ways that you can set up a meeting with a student ambassador to learn more about student life on campus, maybe sit in on a virtual class, things like that. So lots of cool stuff going on our virtual visit page. So plenty of things to check out. So with that, please send over any questions that you have. I'm happy to stick around for a couple minutes just to see if there are any questions for folks or from folks. And I will share my contact information one more time. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions this year. I know, like I said, this year's weird, and the college search process, I'm sure, feels like even a little bit more daunting than it normally may be. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me as you have any questions about CU Boulder, whether it's questions about application process or specific questions about campus life or programs that you may be interested in. I'm always happy to be a resource. So with that, I'm not seeing any questions coming in. I'll wait for maybe another 15 to 20 seconds or so to see if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, we'll go ahead and wrap up.
This is the awkward part, right?
Just waiting, just hanging out.
Hang out here, see if anyone has any questions.
Yes. Awesome. Well, I'm not seeing anything come in, and that's quite all right. We just covered so many things. Just wanted to say thank you from Central Bucks. Awesome. Thanks, Carrie. It was awesome to have you here. Thanks, everyone, for joining today. I know we're all feeling a lot of Zoom fatigue and on camera quite a bit these days, so I appreciate you hanging out with us for a little bit. Like I said, don't hesitate to reach out this year. I'm sure we'll be in touch at some point. So with that, we'll wrap up, and hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thanks, Rebecca.
See ya.
All right. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye.